Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Campbell. I'm USDA's Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coordinator for the department. So I work on all things beginning farmers and ranchers, and I'm so excited to be here with you today with both SBA and our beginning farmer team at USDA. Today's session is being recorded. We will have it transcribed and the video will be posted online later. So just a couple house creeping notifications for you all. So you will be able to access this later. Please submit questions in Q&A. The chat is disabled, so you'll have to put all your questions in the Q&A. We've got folks staffing that and answering them, and then we'll also be doing some live Q&A where we read your questions off to the presenters at the end. It takes us a little bit of time to transcribe these once they're completed. So give us about a week to get everything online, and that'll all be on farmers.gov/newfarmers is where we post all these resources. But today is really meant to be the first of what's going to be several sessions and lots more webinars to come from us at USDA and with our partners and friends here at SBA. But today is going to be an overview of the resources and programs that we have for beginning farmers between our two agencies. We know that navigating the array of programs that the federal government has to offer for farmers can be really overwhelming and confusing, and sometimes folks just don't know where to start. So we're going to try to break it down for you and talk about the different types of resources that we have and where you can go to learn more about those and answer some of your general questions. So today presenting, we have Terry Billups from SBA and Amanda Robertson, who is one of our regional beginning farmer and rancher coordinators. So I'm going to kick it over to Amanda. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah. Hello to everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We certainly appreciate your attendance, and we hope that you are able to walk away with a lot of good information that will help you. As Sarah stated, this is focused on beginning farmers and ranchers. So a good question to start with, are you new to farming or ranching? And if so, we certainly welcome you to USDA. We like to say that there's a place for everyone at USDA. We have everything from farm loans to crop insurance to conservation programs to disaster assistance. At whatever stage of the game you're in your farming career, we have something for you. And if we don't, or if we need to join forces with some of our stakeholders or partnering organizations, we have folks that can direct you and help you to get connected with those individuals to where you may receive the financial or technical assistance, or perhaps you're needing to know about some educational opportunities. We can do that through our state beginning farmers and ranchers coordinators. And there's a link posted here. You can find who those individuals are on farmers.gov/new farmers. Every state has a USDA state beginning farmer and rancher coordinator. So in that directory, you'll see every state listed, that individual, their telephone number, email address. So we highly, highly encourage you to get connected with those individuals. They're a wealth of knowledge. They work across all USDA agencies, and they're able to get you connected and pointed in the direction that you need to go. Additionally, when you connect with those individuals, there are some important questions that they will more than likely ask you. And it's good for you to evaluate your current situation. And these are good questions for you to just ask yourself as you're thinking about getting started farming, or if you're looking to expand or perhaps take over your family farm. So obviously, a beginning farmer rancher coordinator is going to ask you if you're currently farming. Do you have a business plan? What are you producing and how do you sell it, or how do you plan to sell it? What type of support are you needing? What are you looking for? Are you looking for conservation support, financial, technical assistance, disaster assistance? And then are you working with USDA? These folks will share with you how to get connected, what steps to take, and we're going to discuss that a little bit later on through this presentation as well. And then what type of support system or bench do you currently have? It's so important to have a good network that can consist of, as we mentioned, if you're needing educational opportunities, connecting with your local extension agents. They offer a lot of good educational opportunities and workshops. Perhaps there are state entities and organizations that provide assistance in business planning, helping you to develop a business plan. Perhaps they help with grant writing if there are grants that you may be interested in that we're going to tell you about a little bit later on. Things like that, or organizations, getting involved in community organizations in your area that support agriculture. It's always good to be aware and expand your network and know where you're going in that regard. So when we think about a beginning farmer and rancher, who are we actually talking about and what does that mean? It's anyone who has not operated a farm for more than 10 years. Different agricultural organizations or even within USDA, that definition may be tweaked a little bit. It may differ in some areas, but as standard procedure, that's what that definition is going to mean. You've not operated a farm for more than 10 years. I know, for example, like with Farm Bureau, the Young Farmer Rancher program, it's based on age. Once you get to age, I think 35, you more than likely age out of that program. At USDA, it's solely based on the years that you've operated a farm. It doesn't matter how old you are. And actually, 27% of America's farmers are in that beginning stage. However, there are unfortunately some barriers that beginning farmers face when trying to get into agriculture and into farming. They have some unique challenges, as some of those may be land access, access to capital, lack of experience, less financial resilience, and less likely to be aware of USDA programs. So today we hope that this is the first step in helping folks to break down those barriers as we try to explain, how we can help you to overcome that. So when we think about those 27% of beginning farmers, it's a variety of individuals. Everyone's not in the same stage of farming at the same place. We could have individuals that are just thinking about farming. They haven't even started. They don't have a plan. They don't have land. They don't have capital. They don't have a market. They don't know where to even start, but yet they contact USDA wanting to know how to get started and what they can do. Individuals may be early in their farming career. You may be in an early stage. You may have some things that you need, but yet you're looking for some additional support or funding. You may be more experienced and you're ready to scale up or expand. Or you could have been farming for your entire life, your family. You may be on a family farm. You're a multi-generational farmer who is looking to take over the family business. At USDA, we get all of those contacts. So our beginning farmer rancher coordinators deal with all of those individuals. So if you're sitting there thinking that you don't fit the bill, or there's nothing there for you, or you haven't got started, or yet you're at a point where you don't think USDA can help you, maybe you've been working with USDA, go ahead and give us a call and get connected with those beginning farmer rancher coordinators, or reach out to your local USDA service center. Again, you can do that by simply Googling USDA Service Center Locator. A map of the United States will be populated. You can click on your state, then you can click on your county. It will tell you how to get in contact with those individuals locally, give you the name, address, telephone number, email address. Again, it's very important to connect with them. We work with all types of producers and all types of those who are in that beginning stage, who are 1 to 10 years into production. So what can USDA provide? Some of our resources include working capital, which include direct and guaranteed loans, risk management tools, conservation assistance, cost share or grants possibly that support value-added and renewable energy upgrades. And we're also able to make referrals. Again, that's why it's so important to connect with those coordinators, as they're able to provide all of that information to you and get you connected appropriately. So when we think about working with USDA, we have some targeted groups, and we want to make you aware of what these groups consist of. Obviously, we've been talking about our beginning farmers and ranchers, anyone who's not operated a farm more than 10 years. And then when we have individuals that are applying for assistance in purchasing real estate, we have a program through the Farm Service Agency loan program that's farm ownership. And so to qualify as a beginning farmer, there's another part that you must qualify as, and you cannot own more than 30% of the average acreage in the county where you're applying to purchase this real estate. Now, that's a little bit more in depth than what we're going to get today, but certainly wanted to mention it because that is something, it is part of the beginning farmer definition when we think about our farm loan programs for the farm ownership purposes. So just something to keep in mind there. Socially disadvantaged and historically underserved groups. These include African Americans, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, Hispanics, Asians, Pacific Islanders, and women. Again, for various agencies, these definitions may differ somewhat, but typically they're relatively along the same lines. So you want to make certain when you go, if you're interested in applying, connecting with the agencies, you understand what the targeted groups are and what those definitions are. We also have our veteran farmers and ranchers. And again, at this moment, I would like to, if there's anyone who's joined this webinar, if you're currently serving your country, or if you have served, we thank you for your service and appreciate what you have done. So you served your country, now it's our opportunity to serve you. So our veteran farmer or rancher includes anyone who has served in the armed forces, has not operated a farm for more than 10 years, or has obtained veteran status within the last 10 years. So that's what qualifies as a beginning farmer, veteran, or rancher. And so you may ask why we do this or why it's important. If you identify as one of these targeted groups, potentially you could receive incentives and priorities in some of our programs. Some of the programs, they are competitive, or perhaps there's a fee that's associated with entry into that program. So it could offer a waiver for those fees and give you higher ranking or priority in that ranking process should it be a competitive program. So as we introduce you to some of the USDA agencies, we're going to start off with the Farm Service Agency. Here we have two parts to our house, as we like to say. We have farm programs. Those consist of disaster assistance, conservation programs, safety net, or risk management. As an example of what we just talked about, if you identify as one of those targeted groups, one of the programs that we offer is an insurance. We refer to it as NAP. It's non-insurable assistance crop disaster. And typically there is a $325 fee associated with this program. If you identify as one of those special targeted groups, you could receive that insurance for free. That fee could be waived, or if you choose to increase your coverage, you can buy up at half price. So it's important for purposes such as that you properly identify when you enroll in our system at USDA. We have our farm loan programs, our ownership loans, operating microloans, loan guarantees. FSA is known as the lender of first opportunity. We're here to help you either get started if you've fallen upon hard times, to help you get back on your feet. That's what our loan program's designed for. We do, of course, you have to meet the eligibility requirements. Our ownership loan, of course, as we've already stated, to purchase real estate, we can term that up to 40 years, $600,000 through our direct program is the maximum loan amount. Our operating loans, we can extend those over 7 years, $400,000 currently is the maximum loan amount. Microloans, $50,000 or less. And two, with our operating loans, we can do annual operating loans. I forgot to mention that. Of course, those are termed over 12 years, just as it says. So if you're doing feeder cattle, if you're needing to purchase crop inputs, things like that, we categorize those under our annual operating loans. So interest rate, all of that's still the same. That note's just due within 12 months. Microloans, we term that over 7 years, works just like our regular operating loans, but it's $50,000 or less. This gives beginning farmers and ranchers, and we've seen a lot of our veteran farmers use this as they have transitioned from service to civilian life. They're interested in getting into farming. The microloan program's been very fitting for them. Loan guarantees, this is when your loan request exceeds what FSA can do through its direct programs. So this is where the government, essentially a commercial bank or commercial lender works. They become FSA's customer. So you as the farmer actually work with another lender, a conventional lender, to negotiate your terms, your rates, things such as that. And then the government can support that loan, provide a guarantee for it. Moving on to the Natural Resources Conservation Service. These individuals, we refer to them as boots on the ground. They provide technical assistance, financial support, and they can assist with conservation planning. One of their most popular programs is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Here, I'll give an example. This is a competitive program. It's based on a ranking system on how, if your application is funded or not. So if you identify as a beginning farmer, a veteran beginning farmer, a limited resource producer, meaning your income isn't at a certain level, that can essentially help you in the ranking process. Also, this helps to address resource concerns that you may have on your farm. So there's cost share assistance here, financial support. Also, it could help if you identify, again, as that beginning farmer, you may receive a little bit of extra financial assistance as someone who has a regular application. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The Risk Management Agency, locally, you have all the insurance agents in your local area whom you work with, whom it's very important to have insurance. A lot of our beginning farmers and ranchers, or any of our beginning farmer or any farmer or rancher, sometimes we think we can skimp on this and not have insurance, but that's a terrible idea. You always need to have risk management policies in place. And this helps you to mitigate risk should something happen beyond your control. We have weather events, health, you as an individual, something could happen. So it's always good to have insurance and have that to fall back on. We have a locator listed here. You can go online and find an agent in your area. So highly, highly encourage you to take advantage of that. Rural Development, this is one of our sister agencies who works much like the FSA. However, these individuals, they can assist you with purchasing or building a home in a rural area, whereas FSA solely focuses on production agriculture. Also, if you're looking to start a business, an agricultural business that doesn't involve necessarily production agriculture, you're to that point of marketing, you're wanting to start a business, then Rural Development potentially can help you. They offer direct and guaranteed loan programs for that. And I think you'll hear SBA will tell you about some opportunities that they have to support you in that space as well. Additionally, we have folks always calling wanting to know what grants are available. Unfortunately, at USDA, we do not have any grants that help you to buy land or to help you to purchase those initial inputs. Grants are not available for that at USDA. But we do have grants available through Rural Development that if you are adding value to your product, if you're doing value-added agriculture. So for example, if you're growing tomatoes to make salsa, you're doing berries to make jam, you're doing grapes to make wine, then that's where this value-added producer grant can come into play. Also, Rural Energy for America program. This can be a grant program or a loan program. Where you couple this together, this is to make energy improvements on your farm. So if you're looking, for example, to do replace some lighting, upgrade your lights in a building, LED lighting. If you're looking to improve your heating and cooling system, you can look at geothermal heating and cooling, anything to make improvements to an existing establishment. And then the Ag Marketing Service. So these folks are very important to us as they handle all of our market data. They have an organic program that actually the Farm Service Agency handles. So if you're involved in organic production, we've got an organic certification cost share program that you can enroll in. There's educational opportunities, but something that may be, again, a grant that's available. An individual farmer cannot apply for these grants, but if you're involved in a farmer's market, your farmer's market can come together and apply for this loan. So we have a farmer's market production program, a local food production program, and you can apply as a group for those grants. So wanted to just mention that. So now we've talked about all of these agencies at a very high level, just an introduction to them. As Sarah mentioned in the beginning, we're going to try to do a little bit of a deeper dive on some of these agencies and the programs later on. So today essentially is just an introduction. So we wanted to tell you how to connect, what was out there, how, what your opportunities and possibilities were for working with USDA. So we've told you about all the agencies. So how do you get involved? Again, connect with those state beginning farmer and rancher coordinators. They can direct you or use that USDA Service Center locator that we talked about. Find your local service center, the county where your farm is located. So you will need proof of identity. That can be a driver's license, social security number. You know, of course, they're going to need the basic information that you would need give it anywhere. A copy of your deed if you own land. If you do not own land, if you're just leasing land or you're farming on someone else, you're a tenant on a farm, that's perfectly okay. We can associate you with that farm. But those items are things that are needed if you're operating as a corporation. We need that documentation or an estate or trust. So once we've got that basic information, FSA will then enroll your farm or ranch in its database. We'll create a map outlining your farm or ranch boundaries with acreages. So we'll delineate out your property and assign you a farm serial number. This is a magic number that folks often wonder where it comes from. And so certainly the Farm Service Agency is where this number lives. That's where you get it. And we encourage you to do that as you apply for USDA programs or perhaps any state programs. They can even ask for your farm serial number. So FSA, the Farm Service Agency, is basically when you're starting with USDA, that's where you start, as that's the point of enrollment. Once you're enrolled in our system, we can provide you with routine program notifications. We have something called Gov Delivery, or we can send SMS text messages to let you know about upcoming deadlines, what programs are available, just information to keep you informed and connected with USDA. So some helpful resources that we'd like to leave with you today. The beginning farmer and rancher page of farmers.gov. Again, as we said in the beginning, that's farmers.gov/new farmers. We've also got a new page. We're doing a lot of taxpayer education training, and we're developing a lot of great resources. We want to ensure you as beginning farmers and ranchers that you know about agricultural taxes, as that is something that's very, very important. So we wanted to include that here as a helpful resource. Also, as we talked about our loan programs, we have something called a FSA Farm Loan Discovery Tool. You can simply Google that. It will take you to that, and you answer some short questions, and it will populate what loan opportunities you may be able to participate in and what programs are best suited for your operation and what your needs are. We talked about Gov Delivery. You can sign up for that once you enroll in our system. And then again, just a reminder to connect with that USDA Service Center locator. And so now we're going to let our good friend Terry Billups from the Small Business Administration talk to you about opportunities through SBA in their Office of Rural Affairs. So Terry, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you to USDA for partnering with SBA so that we can present information to beginning farmers and ranchers on what services each of our agencies has available. So my name is Terry Billups. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Rural Affairs within SBA. And for those of you who may have worked with SBA before, you may know us because of our loan programs. Well, besides that, SBA does do a lot of other things, one of which is working with our rural small businesses. And some of you may have already connected with one of our district offices or perhaps even one of our resource partners that are located throughout the United States and our US territories. Can I get the next slide, please? Oh, I have the ability to do it. Great. So who is the Office of Rural Affairs? Well, the focus of the Office of Rural Affairs at SBA is really to work with underserved rural markets. So I'm responsible for rural America and the challenges that you have. So as beginning farmer and ranchers, you have the tools within SBA as well as those within USDA. So there are a lot of resources available to you. In addition to my role in the field of operations working with our district offices, I also serve as an advocate for what is going on in rural communities. So I'm the link between our headquarters office and the district offices that are located throughout the US. There's 68 in total, and they're in our territories as well, in the US territories. And I help to build relationships with other federal agencies. So for example, with USDA, we do have a memorandum of understanding, sorry, hard to get that out, with them. And this partnership today that you see as we present is part of that agreement, that we work together to provide programming to our constituencies. And then in addition, in my role, I also work to identify opportunities. So access to services. One of the things that I'm working on is broadband. So if some of you are affected by not having broadband or not having broadband speed that's acceptable, that's something else that we advocate for on behalf of you. And then also I try to keep my finger on the pulse of what private industry is doing that helps rural America. And sometimes with technology, it could be geared toward farmers and ranchers. Next slide, please. So what's happening right now in rural affairs? I think it's important as beginning farmers and ranchers trying to get acquainted with what services are available for you to also know some of the other things that are going on within rural affairs at SBA. So there are these interagency policy councils that are, of course, at the White House level. And one of the things that I do is to make sure anything related to rural, that you have a voice in those committees on behalf of SBA. So USDA drives one of them, and it's called the Rural Prosperity Network. So for those of you that might be located in Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, New Mexico, or in some of the tribal lands of Arizona, you will potentially hear about this RPN. That's the acronym that's used for the Rural Prosperity Network. So what does that mean to you? Well, as beginning farmer and ranchers, it could be that the 16 agencies, there's 16 federal agencies that are involved in this RPN. There could be additional resources outside of USDA and SBA that are available to you that relate to your business. So it is good for you to sort of find out what's available to you locally if you're one of those states. And there may be other programs that you can tap into or other opportunities even for training. So in terms of, knowing what's available, I think it's good for you to know at least this is in your neighborhood potentially. There will be a second cohort that's coming, and that the states for that will be announced before the end of September. So stay tuned for that. And then as part of that initiative, there's also rural desk officers. So again, each of those states that's in the cohorts will have someone that's locally available, and then they will connect with the 16 agencies. So each agency has a point of contact, and for SBA, I am that person. So again, if you're in one of those areas that's affected by the RPN and you have questions, then certainly you can come to me as the point person at SBA, and I can help to navigate through those issues. And then also I mentioned broadband. And again, if you are in need of broadband service, and I know that, it's essential for running a business, even if it is agricultural or ranching, there are some opportunities. So if you go to internetforall.gov, there are some services and programs that are available to you to offset some of the expense. So just again, trying to create awareness for you. Next slide, please. So I collaborate a lot with other federal agencies. So this meeting today is part of one of those collaborations. And then also, as you can see on this slide, there's some other federal agencies we're working on as well. In fact, we're doing some work with NASA on ag tech. So when you think of being a farmer or a rancher, besides it being a business, thinking of technology, and if perhaps you're even somehow planning a business around technology that ties into ag or ranching, just be aware that, again, there are other programs that SBA is working on your behalf to connect with some of these other resources at different agencies. For any women that are on the line that are starting out in ranching or farming, we are doing this Rural Ascent pilot program. And what that is it's going to be a 12-week program, and you can apply to be part of that. We're going to select a few women. And when I say a few, the maximum will be 20 women from across the country to participate in this program. The Ascent platform is actually at sba.gov, and it's a self-guided curriculum. But in addition to that, we're going to put this cohort together as a team of small business owners comprised of different types of services and different types of businesses, and ag and ranching are part of that. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in, you can shoot me an email, and my contact for the email is on a later slide, and I can give you the information, because we are, as of right now, going through the registration and application process. Next slide, please. So what can SBA do for you? How can I help you as a beginning farmer and rancher? Well, these are the four main things that SBA is known for. One being technical assistance, two being access to capital, three government contracting programs, and then a lot of you might know us from disaster preparedness and recovery. So if you've ever been involved in any type of natural disaster, say for example, flooding, wildfire, earthquake, the pandemic, and everyone was affected by that, we have programs for preparedness and then to help you recover from that. So those are the four main missions of SBA. Next slide, please. So one of the things that SBA wants to do in coordination with USDA is to make sure you get the resources that you need. So say, for example, you initially connect with a farm service agency coordinator, and for whatever reason, they can't help you, then the hope is that you'll come over to SBA and we'll be able to help you, or vice versa. So at the end of the day, the real hope here is that between the two agencies, you'll be able to get the resources you need to start your business or grow your business if you're already in business. So one of the easiest ways to get that technical assistance is really to go to sba.gov/local assistance. And when you go to that website, you're able to put in a zip code, and it will show you what resources are available to you locally. And those services could be by way of the SBA district office. It could be one of our other resource partners that we fund, like the small business development centers, the women's business centers, veteran business outreach centers. We have SCORE mentors. So there are a lot of different ways that SBA can connect with you and help you navigate through the business of getting set up and also growing your business. The other thing that we can help you do is with online learning. We do have various tools if you go to sba.gov. So with the online learning, you can select a topic, and then you can actually go through it on your own and find out, different types of business acumen type resources. So you would be able to, for example, create a business plan. That's one thing that's out there. And then SBA also has, it's a 10-step program on starting a business. So if you're in that pre-startup phase, that might be a really good tool for you. Next slide. So I mentioned our SBDCs, and we always use lots of acronyms in government. So when I said Small Business Development Center, the acronym is SBDC. Our women's business centers who service both men and women. So if you're a male and you're in farming or ranching and you do that local assistance and it comes up to be a women's business center, you don't have to be a woman to contact them to get assistance. We also have veterans business outreach centers, community navigators, and the community navigators have just come online fairly recently. And there could be what we call hubs, which is the main source of support for technical assistance, or it could be a spoke. So if it's say a national organization, they could have spokes that they're partnering with in various areas or regions throughout the country. So you could reach out to them. And then we also have our Service Corps of Retired Executives, or SCORE. So these I always like to think of as mentors to help you in your entrepreneurial journey. So sometimes you just need that extra support for a particular question, maybe it's finance related, or perhaps you just need someone to use as a sounding board. Our SCORE mentors are very knowledgeable. They have a lot of practical experience too, which is always helpful. So I encourage you to reach out to one or more of these resources. There's nothing that would preclude you from having a SCORE mentor and perhaps working with a counselor at one of the other organizations. So don't think that you can only use one, because you can use multiple. And of course, they're at no cost. Next slide. Another thing that we can help you with is access to capital. And I mentioned earlier that, because of the pandemic, a lot of folks thought, SBA, we do loans. That's what we do. Well, we do much more than loans. But that is a big portion of what we do. And through our different programs, we're hoping that we have tools that will help you not only in that startup phase, but as you scale and grow your business. So for example, our micro loan program is up to $50,000. So if you needed as little as $500, but up to 50, that was sort of where you thought you fit for a loan. That could fall under our micro loan program. Our Community Advantage program goes up to $250, and that program is through a CDFI. So through our Community Development Financial Institution, at least that's the micro loan, I'm sorry. Our general purpose 7A loans and our 504 loans are a little bit different. The general purpose 7A loans are used for many different things. So that could be used for working capital. If you needed to purchase a building, it could be used for that. It could be used for capital equipment. The 504 program can also be used for those same purposes, but that the purpose for 504 is generally for real estate or large capital equipment. And the structure of the 504 loan program is different from that of our 7A loan. So if any of these tools seems like it might be a good fit for you, I encourage you to either work with your lender that you already have, and hopefully you have a good relationship with your lender. They know who you are. If you don't and you need a lender, you can always go to our lender match tool. And what that is I always say it's the online version of like match.com for lenders and borrowers. And what you do is fill out a very short form, and it will ask you a few questions, and then it will match you to lenders that are interested in potentially lending to you based on the information you provided. And I use the word potential because it really is just to match you with lenders that lend for farming or equipment or whatever it is that you need a loan for. And within 2 days of putting that information into the system, you'll be matched with lenders in your area that are interested in connecting with you and talking about what your needs are. So it's a good way for you to just do a market test. If you either have been denied by your current lender or you just don't have a lender, that's a really useful tool. And again, you can find it at sba.gov. And then of course, for the 504 loan program, again, as a small business owner, you would work with a certified development company and a bank or a credit union. So that is a loan structure that's a bit different from what you would probably expect, that there are 3 participants in that loan process. So it's the small business owner, the certified development company, and then the bank or credit union that you're working with. And then of course, 7A, again, just go back to your lender that you typically use, or, if you've been denied, then you can find an SBA lender using that lender match tool. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, got it. No, go back one, sorry. There was a little delay. So the other thing that SBA says, when I mentioned those 4 things in the beginning that SBA is known for, is government contracting. So as a beginning farmer or rancher, if you see yourself at some point in the future, or perhaps if you're growing, getting involved in government contracting, we also have the ability to assist you through that process. And again, through our resource partners that were mentioned earlier, for technical assistance, we can help you navigate through the process. Or if you'd like to try it on your own, you can go to the sam.gov website, and that's where you would register for government contracting. And then that will also hyperlink you to other resources that are available if you want to do research on what the government buys. So say, for example, you're farming or ranching, and let's just say you're a meat producer and you want to know, does the government buy poultry? Well, you could go and look up the NAICS code for poultry and see what the government has purchased, what agency purchased it, what the value of the contract was. So it gives you the ability to do that background information as you consider whether or not that's something you may want to do. And for those of you who are just starting out, but you have the ability to scale, and you think that at some point in the future, you'd like to really expand into government contracting, I encourage you to sort of look at that website, do some research, and as you structure your business, keep that in mind as you try to figure out what your strategy is for that startup phase. And then, as you grow, perhaps, 3, 4, 5 years in the future. And part of what SBA offers is our business development group. So in the district offices, there are folks who have specialties in government contracting. And for the most part, they guide our 8A business development program. So you see that SDB, which stands for Small Disadvantaged Business. And SBA has this 9-year business development program called 8A, and 8A comes from the part of the law. It has an unusual name, so people usually want to know what it means. But in the event that you are in business a couple of years and decide, yes, I would like to be involved, and yes, the government buys what I either grow or raise, then that's an opportunity for you if you meet the qualifications. And it's a social qualification that you have to be part of one of the socially recognized groups that has been historically disadvantaged. And then there's also an economic component of that. And then also the hub zone program, you could be in a hub zone. So you can go to sam.gov and you can put in your street address and zip code, and it will tell you whether or not you're in a hub zone. And the reason for that would be to qualify for set asides. So any of these categories you see below set aside, small business, SDB, hub zone, service disabled veteran, or women-owned businesses qualify for set asides in government contracting, which is a huge advantage. So again, we're just going high level today just to create some awareness as you start out and really plan out your business, or if you're growing and this is something of interest, so that at least you know it exists, and to come to us to get more information. Next slide, please. Next slide. Disaster preparedness and recovery. That's another thing that SBA is known for. And disaster preparedness is probably most important before a disaster. That's the word preparedness, right? However, it is often something that's overlooked as businesses start out and really start to lay out what their business looks like, is how to prepare for an emergency. And I think the pandemic showed a lot of folks, that in the event the world sort of changes because of an event such as a pandemic, what do you do? Like, how do you, if you're a rancher, for example, how do you go about getting feed if all the stores are closed? So all of that preparedness piece are things that you really need to sit back and think about and come up with a plan and document that plan, so that if something happens, you're not scrambling around trying to figure it out. And the same goes on the agriculture side. Once your harvest happens, if you're counting on, whoever buys your products to be there, and then all of a sudden something changes, there's some natural occurrence, and all of a sudden they can't take your product, what do you do? So if you use that sba.gov/prepare link, it will take you within the SBA website, and it offers you some tools and tips on what to think about, how to prepare. And that really should be part of your strategy as a business. And as you look at farming and ranching as a business, that should be a big portion of it. And again, most folks don't think about that because you're just busy trying to just get the business started or just keep it going. But I would recommend that everyone at least take some time to look at that. And even from the perspective of record keeping, how to keep your records at 2 separate physical locations, all those things that typically you don't think about. There's a checklist that will help you at least plan for that. And then also continuity plan. So if there's some disruption in your business, and let's say, for example, you live in a part of the country where you're prone to fires or something. Again, what do you do? How do you continue your business if you have to relocate your cattle, for example? So again, if you use that ready.gov tool, it will help you navigate through that. And then in the unlikely, and hopefully it never happens, event that you have to recover from a disaster, SBA also can help you with disaster recovery loans, and then also that technical assistance piece, again, to help you get back on your feet and figure out if you didn't plan properly or there's things that you just can't figure out on your own. We're there to help you with that as well. Next slide. So if you have questions specifically about rural, you can reach out to me at rural@sba.gov. The other thing I encourage you to do is take a minute and find your local resources, just because they're the ones who are in your area. And I know for some of you, in your area could mean hours away, but at the same time, they may have insider knowledge of programs and services that could be applicable to you, that might be from the state or from other resources that from a national view I may not know about. But certainly if you want to reach out to me, I can help connect the dots for you. I'm happy to do that. But I always encourage folks to get to know who is available to you locally and how they might help you in the event that you need it. So unless there are questions, that's it for me. And I see there's actually a lot of questions in the Q&A. So I know that someone was going to ask them, and I'll leave it up to you, Sarah, if you're going to ask the questions, and we'll go through them.
Yeah, actually, so Terry, there have been a number of questions from folks who are wanting to know a little bit more about the specific resources available for women farmers and women entrepreneurs. Can you just do a quick rundown and highlight of those again?
Sure. So because we're a federal agency, all of our resources are available on a non-discriminatory basis. However, for things that are tailored toward women, the one thing that I'm working on right now is that Ascent pilot, and that is tailored specifically to women-owned businesses. So whether you're a startup or you've been in business for a few years and your average revenues are 50,000 or less, that might be a good fit for you. So if anyone is interested in that, shoot me an email at rural@sba.gov. There is an information session that's happening tomorrow at 3:30. And you can register for that, or if you have a specific question, I'd be happy to answer it in an email. But that's one program that will create that cohort of folks that will, work together through 12 weeks of programming, and hopefully at the end come out, better educated and better prepared to launch or grow their business. But the Ascent curriculum itself is available online, and it's self-guided. So if you just go to sba.gov and do a keyword search Ascent, you can get to that curriculum, and you have to register for it, but it's no cost and it's self-guided. So you can start and stop or skip around within the modules if you like, if there's something that you're trying to learn more about.
Thanks. And Amanda, we got a number of questions about urban agriculture and eligibility and resources and kind of how folks should approach that. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of the universe there and how we treat urban farms?
Sure. So basically policy is we treat them just like we do any other farmers. There's a lot of things in the works right now for urban ag. We're developing the urban ag COC committees. There's a lot of work around that space. So really trying to find out how USDA can leverage its footprints in better serving urban agriculture, as we do see the face of agriculture changing and more folks are becoming involved in the urban areas. I know there's been a lot of discussion on how we're going to assign farm serial numbers for those individuals to participate in programs. That is a possibility. if you're doing rooftop gardening or you're in an urban setting, we can still assign you a farm serial number. Sometimes we have to get creative and think out of the box. And then also our loan programs, they still, if you still have to meet the eligibility requirements, but we can look at funding some urban agricultural projects there as well. And hopefully, like I said, as we do a lot more work in this space, and I think a lot of things are forthcoming in the future. So I would just encourage folks to stay tuned on the work that's being done around urban agriculture, but certainly USDA is looking to support it and kind of beef up our efforts in supporting those producers moving forward.
Thanks. And we have gotten some questions about bridge loans. Terry, I don't know if you can speak to if SBA is able to offer bridge loans. FSA is only able to, we don't do a lot with bridge loans, unfortunately.
It's the same for SBA. I don't believe there's a prohibition, but it's best to reach out and talk to either your lender, if they're an SBA lender, or you can call your local district office, or you can shoot me an email and I'll try to answer the question for you as well, based on your specific circumstances.
Thanks, Terry. And actually, so, this has been a really general presentation, and some folks have some really specific answers or, questions about their local offices and staff. And this is a question actually both for Terry and Amanda, so I'll let you all take turns answering this, but what should folks do if they need help troubleshooting? Either they're having a hard time getting a hold of somebody at their local office, or their staff aren't answering questions, or maybe they've applied for a program and been denied and have kind of questions about what kind of recourse they might have.
Okay,
Amanda, do you want to go first?
Sure. So at USDA, again, as we mentioned, those state beginning farmer rancher coordinators are always at folks' disposal to use them. Also at the Farm Service Agency, we have individuals who serve as state outreach coordinators, though they can kind of help troubleshoot and point folks in the right direction. If you're having issues at the local level, also there are district directors who are available to assist at those times. And then all of our state offices, that information is online as well. Every state has a state executive director or a state office that they can locate and use their contact information to contact them to discuss any issues like that. But again, I would just encourage you, to really try to work with folks at the local level, and then reach out to those either those state outreach coordinators or those state beginning farmer rancher coordinators, as they may be able to try to help you better understand. And maybe it's just simply some miscommunication there. Maybe we're using different wording, we're not understanding. And again, those employees who serve as those coordinators with USDA, they work with a variety of individuals. So they're very well-rounded, very knowledgeable, and they can try to help you troubleshoot and navigate some of the issues and roadblocks that you're having. So I would certainly reach out to them. And then from there, they have contacts that they can go to. Certainly, us as regional coordinators, we can assist if need be, but ultimately everything takes place there at the local level. That's where the rubber meets the road. And we're here to support them, support you. We'll work together on trying to resolve any issues that you may have.
And then thank you, Amanda. And then from the SBA perspective, in terms of troubleshooting, it depends what your needs are. So let's say, for example, you're trying to figure out if you're going to set up, a business and you don't know how to structure it. That's something that one of our resource partners could help with. So one of the WBCs, which is the Women's Business Centers, one of the SBDCs, which is the Small Business Development Centers, or even one of our SCORE mentors. So depending on what exactly you need, it's going to depend on what resources are available. Keep in mind that when you look at it from a holistic business perspective, that through our network of business partners, they can probably handle 99% of what you would encounter as a small business. They have various consultants, and then they have other partners that they can leverage as well to get you the expertise that you may need and the answers you may need. So I would probably start with just using that local assistance tool and find out who's near you and see who it is and reach out to them. If you have, a really clear understanding of what it is you're looking for when you set up the appointment, and most of them can do it either on the phone or virtually, that's probably a really good way to at least get started. And then that way it'll make the most of that first meeting. So for example, if you need help with, let's say, QuickBooks, and you can articulate that when you make the appointment, that'll probably be most efficient and a good use of your time and even the partner that you're reaching out to. Any other questions? I know I answered a few that were geared toward SBA in the chat. So if you have anything else, I'll leave it up to Sarah to direct us as I just scan through quickly the chat as well.
Thanks. And just a reminder for folks, because we've gotten this question a lot, the recording for this and the slides and any, supplemental materials, they will be posted on farmers.gov/newfarmers. It just usually takes us about a week to get the captioning and the transcription done on this, so they will be available online. And also keep a lookout on that webpage. There's going to be more webinars. I know there've been a lot of questions about loans and eligibility as well, and different programs. So we will do some deeper dives on financing in the near future. And also just want to remind folks, on SBA and our farmers.gov web pages, we've got a lot of details on the different loans and eligibility, and encourage you to explore those and play with the loan discovery tool. And actually, one last question, since we've got 2 minutes, and this one's both for Amanda and Terry. Can you talk about eligibility or for nonprofits? We've gotten a bunch of questions about folks who want to start philanthropic organizations, and if that, or buy land or like run a nonprofit farm, if you can work with not 501c3s or help them get started.
I'll go first on this one. So typically SBA's requirements that you are a for-profit business as opposed to a nonprofit. Again, if you go to sba.gov and just look at the loan area, it will tell you what's available. The SBA doesn't typically do grants, which are, I would say, the norm for what nonprofits typically get. We do some grants to like our small business development centers, but just in terms of, providing grants to individual businesses, that typically doesn't happen. But I would look on our website and you'll see what's available for the for-profit side. And I'll also mention that often what SBA sees is a for-profit business will establish itself and then sometimes use the for-profit side of the business to fund a nonprofit arm. So there are some unique circumstances surrounding that. So again, I wouldn't be afraid to reach out to our technical assistance partners if you have something, but they are geared more toward working with for-profit businesses.
Yes, and the same goes for FSA. If we're talking about loan assistance, nonprofits are not eligible to receive loan assistance. So everything, it's geared towards profitability. Again, as I mentioned, production, agriculture, it needs to be for profit. to be able to participate in those programs. But again, I would have a conversation with the local folks in your county, contact the local service center, and with some of their partners or stakeholders, folks that they may work with locally, they may be able to provide that assistance. But unfortunately for USDA, we're not able to provide loan assistance to nonprofits.
Thanks for mentioning that, Amanda. And that's something else, if you reach out to one of the local resource partners, they often have visibility to things that SBA, of course, as a federal agency, isn't really involved in, but they have, I'll call it a more holistic view of the market. So they're often able to provide you some direction and some suggestions.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That is all we have time for today. Thank you, everyone who joined us. And like we said, be on the lookout on farmers.gov/ufarmers for the recording and materials. Thanks for joining and for all of your great questions. And we hope that you get connected with your local USDA and SBA staff. Have a great afternoon.